and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. Prime Minister Imran Khan says he is against nuclear weapons, but Pakistan's nuclear program is only for the national defense. In an interview with HBO, Khan said the United States must make a political settlement before withdrawing from Afghanistan. He also questioned the international community's silence on human rights violations in Indian-occupied Kashmir. On Islamophobia, Khan said there is no connection between Islam and terrorism, and Muslims are facing the consequence of the term Islamic terrorism. Indian troops have martyred 3 civilians in occupied Jammu and Kashmir's Baramulla district. The youths were targeted during a so-called search operation in Sopore town of the district. The occupying troops have martyred nearly 370 Kashmiris since the revocation of the Valley Special status in 2019. In Armenia, acting Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan's civil contract party has won the parliamentary elections. Preliminary results show the ruling party received 53.92% of the vote from all 2008 polling stations. Pashinyan called snap elections after a notorious defeat against Azerbaijan in the Nagorno-Karabakh war. The United States says it is preparing new set of sanctions against Russia over the poisoning of Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny. In an interview, U.S. Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said European allies are being rallied to sanction Russia for using chemicals against its own citizens. Responding, the Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said the U.S. always likes to create obstacles. India has reported over 53,000 new COVID-19 cases with more than 1,400 deaths, taking the toll beyond 388,000. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 30 more people have lost their lives to the virus, while over 900 tested positive in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.86 million lives and infected over 178 million people so far. Well, those were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, the news in detail. Prime Minister Imran Khan says he is against nuclear weapons, but Pakistan's nuclear program is only for national defense. In an interview with HBO, Khan said the United States must ensure a political settlement before withdrawing from Afghanistan. He also questioned the international community's silence on human rights violations in Indian-occupied Kashmir. He said Kashmir is an open prison with 800,000 Indian troops who have killed over 100,000 civilians so far. Regarding his advocacy for Islamophobia in the West, Khan said the 1.3 billion Muslim population was targeted after 9/11. Khan said the West coined the term Islamic terrorism after 9/11 as if it is religion that radicalizes people. He said there is no connection between Islam and terrorism. The Prime Minister added that there is a huge communication gap between the Islamic and Western world. Indian troops have martyred 3 civilians in occupied Jammu and Kashmir's Baramulla district. The youths were targeted during a so-called search operation in Sopore town of the district. The operation was ongoing till the last reports came in. The occupying troops have martyred nearly 370 Kashmiris since the revocation of the Valley Special status in 2019. Islamabad says Afghanistan must stop making Pakistan a scapegoat for its failures. In an interview, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said Pakistan wants a peaceful Afghanistan. Qureshi said a settlement would yield mutual dividends such as regional connectivity. The Foreign Minister added that Pakistan is not concentrating on a particular faction and wants to engage with all Afghans. Qureshi said the warring sides should show flexibility to find a way forward. He asserted that only Afghans should decide about the form of government in the future. Speaking on India-Afghanistan relations, Qureshi said the two countries have a right to good ties, but Afghan territory must not be used to destabilize Pakistan. In Afghanistan, police say they have sent reinforcements to FARYAB province for operations in areas captured by the Taliban. Reportedly, the centers of 11 districts in the province have fallen to the Taliban as they advance towards Maymana city. A FARYAB police spokesperson said the security forces have been mobilized and will launch the operation soon. He added 11 Taliban were killed as FARYAB's Pashtun Kot and the Handara districts were retaken from the Taliban. Meanwhile, the Taliban claimed to have captured the centers of Dawood-Abad and Shulgara districts in Balkh province. Earlier, Afghan forces killed 31 Taliban fighters during operations in Dawood-Abad and Chahar Bolak districts in Balkh. The White House says President Joe Biden will meet his Afghan counterpart Ashraf Ghani in Washington on June 25th. The statement adds Chairman of the High Council for National Reconciliation, Abdullah Abdullah, will also be present. White House spokesperson Jen Psaki says the visit will highlight the enduring partnership between the two countries. She said Washington is committed to providing diplomatic, economic, and humanitarian assistance to the Afghan people. Psaki said Washington wants to ensure Afghanistan that it never again becomes a haven for terrorist groups that harm the U.S. She said Washington continues to fully support the ongoing peace process and encourages all Afghan parties to participate meaningfully in negotiations to bring an end to the conflict. In Armenia, acting Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan's civil contract party has won the parliamentary elections. Preliminary results show the ruling party received 53.92% of the vote from all 2,008 polling stations. The Central Election Commission says the Armenia Alliance comes second with 21.04%. Meanwhile, I Have the Honor Party is third with 5.23% of the vote. Russian media reported the nationwide turnout at 49.4%. Pashinyan called snap elections after a notorious defeat against Azerbaijan in the Nagorno-Karabakh war. The United States says it is preparing a new set of sanctions against Russia over the poisoning of Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny. In an interview, U.S. Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said European allies are being rallied to sanction Russia for using chemicals against its own citizens. Responding, the Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said the U.S. always likes to create obstacles. She added the U.S. is trying to solve the problems of its own non-competitiveness. The U.S. and the European Union have already imposed sanctions over the alleged poisoning back in March. The latest warning of sanctions comes just days after U.S. President Joe Biden met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Geneva. The United States says it is looking forward to a positive response soon on talks from North Korea. This comes after Pyongyang said it needs to be ready for both dialogue and confrontation with Washington. U.S. Special Representative for North Korea, Sung Kim, met his South Korean and Japanese counterparts in Seoul. After the talks, Kim said Washington will also be prepared for either dialogue or confrontation. He said the U.S. will continue to enforce UN Security Council resolutions that impose sanctions on Pyongyang. The envoy reaffirmed the shared commitment to denuclearize the Korean peninsula through diplomacy. Meanwhile, the White House termed North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's remarks an interesting signal. In an interview, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said Washington is still waiting for a direct response from Pyongyang on talks. India has reported over 53,000 new COVID-19 cases, with more than 1,400 deaths, taking the toll beyond 388,000. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.86 million lives and infected over 178 million people so far. More in this report. Brazil has recorded over 1,000 deaths from coronavirus and more than 44,000 infections overnight. The country has registered nearly 18 million cases since the pandemic began, with over 501,000 deaths. Japan will decide today on whether fans will be allowed at the pandemic-postponed Tokyo Olympics. Indonesia will tighten mobility restrictions in some areas for 2 weeks, starting from Tuesday after a rise in cases. In Australia, Prime Minister Scott Morrison has promised more vaccines for the southwestern New South Wales state, which is fighting to contain its latest outbreak of the highly infectious Delta variant. The country's most populous city, Sydney, is on alert as a cluster in its suburbs grows to 9 cases. Over half the new cases being reported in Portugal's Lisbon region are also of the more infectious Delta variant. Meanwhile, the U.S. has extended a non-essential travel ban to neighboring Canada and Mexico until 21st of July. In Pakistan, deaths from COVID-19 have surpassed 22,000, with 30 more fatalities reported overnight. The Health Ministry says more than 900 people tested positive in the past 24 hours. The country has reported over 949,000 cases and more than 893 recoveries so far. The active number of cases stands at 34,000, with a positivity rate of 2.6%. Pakistan is reporting a steady decline in coronavirus cases after a deadly third wave. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Imran Khan says partial lockdown, coupled with comprehensive data analysis, helped Pakistan contain the virus. Ethiopians are voting in national and regional polls in what the government calls the first free elections. About 37 million people are eligible to vote to pick 547 deputies for the federal parliament. The ruling Prosperity Coalition led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is the main contender for victory among 46 parties. The government is billing the elections as proof of Abiy's commitment to democracy after decades of authoritative rule. The Prime Minister earlier held a meeting of the National Strategic Command in Addis Ababa to ensure secure polls. Abiy vows to revive Ethiopia's economy hit by conflicts and the COVID-19 pandemic. In Nigeria, 3 children have died following a school kidnapping of 94 students and 8 staff members in the northwestern state of Kabul. The school principal said 2 girls and a boy were found dead, 2 with gunshot wounds in their legs. Mustafa Yusuf revealed that the bandits demanded over $146,000 ransom from the parents. Meanwhile, the army said in a statement it has rescued 3 teachers and 8 students so far, killing one of the kidnappers. There have been a series of kidnappings for ransom in northern Nigeria, with a sharp rise in abductions since late 2020. In the United States, 10 people, including 9 children, have died in a pileup of 18 vehicles in the storm-hit state of Alabama. Officials said the vehicles were likely to have hydroplaned on a wet highway and lost control. The Butler County Sheriff's Office posted on Facebook that the accident was believed to be the country's worst ever. 8 of the dead were killed, girls traveling in a vehicle owned by a residential home for youths. 2 others, a 29-year-old father and his 9-month-old baby, were killed in a separate vehicle. The storm Claudette swept across the southeastern U.S., causing flash flooding and destroying dozens of homes. In Spain, the Coast Guard rescued 45 migrants off Gran Canaria, including 24 women and 8 children. Officials said the migrants from sub-Saharan Africa were spotted in a boat by a passing ship. They were brought ashore in a rescue vessel on Sunday afternoon. Small children, some wrapped in blankets, were handed to rescue workers, while some adults, looking visibly exhausted, had to be helped off the boat. So far this year, more than 5,700 migrants have made the dangerous crossing from Africa to the Canaries archipelago. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Asian stocks have dropped after the U.S. Treasury yield curve flattened further, with 30-year yields dropping below 2%. Japan's Nikkei led declines with a 3.6% drop, while MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan fell 1.4%. Australia's ASX 200 shed nearly 2%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index dropped over 1.3%. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.